Hello, everyone, and welcome back to the Digital Nomad World weekly series. I'm Becky, and I'll be your host. And today we're going to talk about regenerating land and staying on a farm as a digital nomad with my guest, Beatriz Fonseca. Bea, welcome to the show.
Thank you. Thank you. I'm so happy to be here.
I'm so happy to have you and hear about this amazing place where digital nomads, remote workers, it doesn't matter who you are, you can come and stay. And just so everybody, for the people that are watching, the pictures we have behind us are part of this place that we're about to talk about. Yes, at TDF. I can see the letters TDF. What does TDF stand for, Bea?
It stands for Traditional Dream Factory. That's what it stands for.
All right, and we're going to talk about the traditional dream factory today. But first, Bea, I want to ask you, how did you start your remote work journey? And can you tell us about your background?
Yeah. Oh, thank you. Thank you for the question. Yeah, it's interesting. I actually started my remote working journey with TDF itself. So I used to live in the Netherlands where I studied and where I also worked for around 2 years. And then at some point, just in the middle of COVID, I decided to come back to Portugal and I started to get involved with TDF and more with the tech world and like with operations in this digital world. And that's how I started. That's how I've been embracing I call myself home packer instead of a backpacker, as in my digital nomad kind of like circuit, I tend to go for like long stretches of time to places where I have a lot of friends and kind of stay in their homes. So yeah, that's my journey.
I love that phrase, home packer. So how did you first become acquainted with TDF and the idea of this coming back from the Netherlands to Portugal?
Mm, yeah, that's a curious question because I think it was my ex-partner, Josh. He really wanted to come and to participate in at Rebuild. Rebuild is kind of this network of people that are building similar projects that with a vision of building a regenerative future and regenerative countryside. And in September 2021, I came to TDF for 5 days and I met a bunch of creative and really cool and a quite diverse setting also of people that were a little bit embracing this question of how to bring life to the countryside and how to live together in a way that it was a bit more modern than other iterations that we had experienced before. And that was my first touch, and I became really, really curious about the model because it didn't require something that for me before was kind of a requirement to live together, which was permanency. I was a bit like, oh, if I want to share my home with my friends, we have to commit 100% to this piece of land or to this house. And TDF challenged that. TDF told me that, okay, maybe we can just be here for 3 months of the year all together and then continue and have other more autonomous parts of our lives. And so these at the time was really like, it took me some time to process these and I was really curious and I really wanted to dive more into it. And I continued coming until we by the end of 2021, start of 2022, we got a grant from Regen Network to start building the technology that powers the whole space. And that's how I started to work to really be part of the project and to commit a large part of my life and my energy to it. Yeah.
It's incredible. Really interesting how you got acquainted with the space. But I think when you see TDF in person, it really speaks to you and the community, as you mentioned. It's a really unique project that I want to dive deeper into now. So the Traditional Dream Factory is located in the Alentejo region of Portugal in a small town called Abela. So how, if you land in Lisbon, how would you first get to this traditional dream factory before we start talking about what the space looks like and things like that?
Okay, perfect. So if you land in Lisbon, you can either take a cab or an Uber or the metro to the train station at Rios, and then from there you take a 1.5 hour train ride to Ermídas do Sado, and usually we go and pick you up. It's a kind of a 10-minute ride from this train station, and that's it. It's actually really accessible. That's one of the really nice things about where TDF is located. It's like 1 hour, 20 minutes train ride from Lisbon, no stops. And also another really thing is that it's about half an hour away from the sea. And yeah, that's good. I hope you can get there. I hope you find your way.
Yes, it's a nice mix of everything. And I mentioned the town of Abela. How far is this town of Abela in comparison to TDF?
Oh, it's super close. It's like 2 minutes walking. So, and maybe I already introduced a little bit of TDF. So TDF, the traditional dream factory, we basically are stewarding for 2 pieces of land, in which one of them is an old chicken farm. So we're playing with 3 warehouses, 3 different warehouses. And these warehouses are just, I don't know, maybe 2, 3, 5 minutes away, depending on how much of a rush you are, to like the local town little square. It's a small town, maybe of like 400, 500 people. It's incredibly populated for the region, I would say. Actually, it's not so easy to get a house in Abela. And there's also like the demographics are quite varied, but I think like probably between, I don't know, 40 and 70 is the biggest population. And it's super interesting because the chicken farm used to be one of kind of like the cultural social pillars of the village. So they used to employ a lot of people, but also they have a lot of outside space. And during the 70s and the 80s, like they used to do, for example, part of the local folklore parties at this place. And so still today, actually, like we once or twice a year, we host the people from the village at TDF so that they can, you know, just do the usual party that they used to do there.
When I first heard that story about TDF and the town of Abela, I really fell in love with it because it's so rare, I think, to have your property and integrated so much with the town already. It almost seems like this place was waiting for someone to come and be open to that and keep the tradition going. And I can tell you, just like B said, because I have been to TDF several times, you walk 5 minutes into the city center, you have a little cafe, you have a little supermarket. And it's kind of the best of both worlds, I think. It's so you can escape from the farm for, you know, half of a couple hours or something if you want, and then come back on foot.
Yeah. It's really I think especially, and TDF is in Portugal. I guess you've all understood that by now. And just to give a little context, I also grew up, I'm born and raised in Portugal. I consider myself Portuguese, whatever that may mean. And it's been really interesting, the journey of having Portugal as a country that, like, everything that it's not on the coastline, it's a bit rural, it's a bit deserted, it's a bit like forgotten. And so it's been really interesting to also, as a local, observe the relationship between this bubble that we're creating at TDF, and how we can actually can be of service and care also for the people that are actually from this land and that have, you know, they were born there, they barely left this place, and how to bring this like new energy and honor and care for these people too. Yeah, and I think the proximity with the village is something that makes it really possible. You know, I think it's so. I think that they all think that we're a bit crazy. They don't really understand what we're doing, but I think that the energy and the fact that we show appreciation and curiosity, and like that we are there and that we are with them, like it's, for me, it brings me a lot of energy.
It's amazing. So I want people to picture this a bit more. So as they come onto the farm itself, like you said, there's these 2 pieces of land, and what am I going to see when I get there? And if I'm arriving as a volunteer or for, let's say, a week there, what would I expect to be doing every day?
Okay. So starting by the beginning of your question, what would you see? So when you arrive at TDF, you see a somehow run down group of buildings. These are three warehouses that I've mentioned before. And they were abandoned, I think, more or less 15 to 20 years ago. And we have been taking care of them since April 2021. And so I think that, like, full disclosure, we've somehow acquired the land and we've got the access to it and we can use all of this infrastructure. And at the moment, simultaneously, TDF is a very humble place still. So like with the accommodations and with the co-working space and like how we live together, it's really from a place that it's not yet fully commodified. And you can see like in the website, like the pictures and how it rolls, and also like in Instagram. And then so we see these warehouses, you have them. So there's one warehouse in the front, and then there's two warehouses in the back. There's kind of almost a U shape, and in the middle of this U shape, we have kind of like an outside feeling area where we have food, where we sit together at night to talk or sometimes to dance. And then behind all of those buildings, we basically have well, we have some compost toilets, and we also have around 1,500 fruit trees that we've planted across the last year to start our fruit forest. And we now also have and are kind of just full on with a market garden for around 30 people. So in March this year, we planted the first iteration of our market garden that we've been eating from. And that's really powerful. That's like after these like 1 year, 2 years being in the land, to actually have a proper like food production mechanism that it's taken care of with so much love. It's interesting. And then behind this fruit and this plant, this food production areas, which if you're familiar with like permaculture principles on how to design your land, you want to have your food close to your house, right? Like, I mean, if I go and I want to pick up my lettuces, I don't want to walk 15 minutes to pick up my salad. So that's why the food production is so close to the kitchen. And then beyond that, we have a sauna, we have a bar area, we have another area that it's not a food production, it's just a reforestation area that we're trying to really like rejuvenate and try to start breaking the soil, putting down nutrients so that, you know, it becomes a bit more alive. We have a tree house, and we just have a lot of playground. And really the idea of what we're trying to build is, which I guess I haven't yet said fully, the idea of TDF is really to create somehow a prototype, like a model, a blueprint for a system to live together. And currently we're prototyping more like a co-living, medium short-term living kind of situation that has nature at the core. And so how can we create housing systems that make people live aligned with their purpose and with their creativity and with their playfulness, and whilst at the same time, regenerating nature, like, and being in sync with the planet and with the universe. That, you know, really cool.
Yeah, I really
respond to your question.
That does. I can imagine. Well, I have been there, but like as you climb up behind the vegetable garden and you reach the tree house and you see the sauna, which is amazing in the winter as a place to, because the Alentejo region does get quite cold at night in the winter. It gets hot in the summer, but you have these things that you're building using the land and the space to refresh in a natural way. And I think that it's very playful. It's a really playful space and a playful community. I know that a pizza oven was recently built there. A lot of things have been built by volunteers, and it's a space where a lot of events have also been held. Let's talk about the events for a moment. I know that TDF can host events for people outside, and they also host their own events. Can you tell us a little bit more about that?
Yeah, of course. So, I mean, at TDF, so basically we're kind of a member-based community. And so there's an entire onboarding process for you to build TDF with us. And with these folks, we kind of curate a set of events that are very often open to the public. because also TDF is a little bit of a transition space, or at least that's how we see it, in that we know that we have a certain lifestyle, but the idea is to really bring this lifestyle to as many as possible, because, you know, like only through this feeding of change, we actually can have a meaningful impact. And so very often we just curate events around, around just being together. It could be something that has to do with our garden or a planting action. It can be something that has to do with something about our blockchain, Web3 tokenomics. It can be something that is just focused on like playfulness. So we try to keep our doors open to receive people and to show a little bit of what we're doing. And at the same time, we also very often, you know, like people have their own projects, people have their own, like their own little circles, their own little networks. And we've been asked quite often to be a place of hosting some other people's ideas. And this is something that we do very openly and we love. We always internally say that we don't want to enter too much this culture of making TDF a hotel or a retreat center. And so when we partner with other organizations or projects to host events or create days at TDF, we try to have a design and we try to have it participatory, so that it being like cooking meals together or making sure that, you know, like the living spaces are held together by all of the people that are there in the space, but not just by TDF. And so there's all of these things about like how to take care of this home that we have together. And no one, like, we're all of service here. We're all trying to take care of our home. And so how can we bring this energy in a balanced way, even when we're receiving friends over? I guess. Does it make sense?
Yes, that makes sense. It's like it's your home, you're inviting people into that space, but you want to do it in a way where you're able to participate and not feel like you're being invaded, or it's something is not in alignment with the people that are living in that space and co-living together.
Exactly.
Thank you for explaining more about that. So, okay, now I want to talk about just briefly about the food. You mentioned there is a vegetable garden. You can get your salad. How does eating work if I come to TDF? Should I stop at the grocery store on my way there and bring a bunch of things, or is there enough of a facility there to give me my meals?
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm. So the way that it works is that we actually have an open kitchen, and unless there are events or very specific things rolling, usually meals are shared and co-created. So you've seen the website, how it works, and like what are the different things associated with it. But bottom line, usually we have these rituals that breakfast is autonomous and independent. Everyone is still a little bit in their own vibe. Like maybe there's a social butterfly that is like already did 3 hours of yoga and half an hour of like breath work, and it's like super powerful in the morning. And some others are like, I'm silent until I have more coffee. But we usually have, breakfasts are like a bit autonomous, like everyone goes to the kitchen. We have everything, you know, like you have oats, you've got yogurt, you've got eggs and bread. You're free to design it your way. And then lunch and dinner, we usually have a board where we ask the people usually two, three people to clean up after cooking, and everyone cooks for everyone. So for example, I go to TDF for a week, I sign up to make lunch on Tuesday and to clean up the kitchen after dinner on Thursday, and I just know that I have to show up at those times and to cook for X amount of people that are around. So yeah, it's actually really nice because you don't have to think so much about it, but you're also super welcome. Of course, we respect people's dietary needs, and you're also super welcome to bring, you know, if you have your own chocolate or your own little cravings that you really like, you can bring them and store them in the kitchen. We mostly cook vegetarian. I would say like 99% of the times. Sometimes we cook fish. We don't usually cook meat. Sometimes the people from the village may bring some sausages or something and may want to share it with us. We try to avoid big labelings around food. because it's a bit like we're all doing our best, and some days are better than others, and sometimes, you know, sometimes we really want to be for a month eating no gluten and no dairy and eating super clean, and then sometimes we also just feel like having Nutella, and it's hard.
Yeah. But it's really nice you have this like big industrial kitchen that people can create things for others or for themselves if they need to. And just, I'm sure if you plan ahead and ask what's there, what you can bring, things like that as well. Now
just to compliment.
Oh, go ahead. Go
something
ahead.
to compliment. I mean, just that when you do your booking process, you can always talk with our space manager and ask all of your questions with regards to like your accommodation in terms of room or in terms of the kitchen, and they will support you with finding the best way to or the most comfortable way for you to stay.
Thank you for saying that and mentioning the space manager. It's really nice that there is someone always there handling these things and being the intermediary. Now, I want to bring up a really interesting and innovative part of TDF that was a first for me when I heard about it. So right now, the TDF has launched a crypto token. It was very recently launched, and it allows people to invest money into TDF by buying the token. So can you tell us how people could buy this token and what investing in TDF will allow you to do? And what is the benefit of investing in TDF?
Yeah, thank you so much for this question. And for me, this is also like one of the highlights of TDF, and like what personally drives me to the project and what very often energizes me, which is like these idea of prototyping models for change and that challenge the status quo. And that's exactly what we're also doing with like you know, using technology as like benefiting nature and the relationship of humans around it. And so basically our token, it's called the TDF token. And our token is launched on the Stello network, and you can purchase it in our website. You can go to traditionaldreamfactory.com, and everything is explained there very extensively. I think I'd be making myself a fool if I would try to explain it here. It's its own journey. But basically, the TDF token is a utility token. So it's actually not an investment of any type, but it's a utility token, and it's basically like a coin that gives you or that gives the token holder access to the facilities of TDF as kind of like a real estate asset. So basically, by purchasing one coin, one TDF coin, you get real estate access. It's like you're buying your house, but you're buying a day in your house. So for example, if I would want to stay for 30 days a year at TDF, I would buy 30 coins. And then every year I would go in the TDF website and I would use these same coins to book my stay. And then the funds that we collect through the selling of the tokens, it's actually the funds to develop the project. So the project ends up being like a crowd-funded platform or a crowd-funded space where everyone that has got their coins is actually putting their savings, and it's actually like also what we've been building is, you know, the access, and that one token gives you one night every year. But we're also building somehow a model of decentralized or distributed leadership. So what we're trying to prototype is a model in which we track how often do you stay, and you know, for example, someone who stays 30 nights has got less influence than someone who's staying 60 nights per year. And then every year, the core team, the people who are running TDF, are presenting roadmaps that are up to voting with people's distributed voting power. And next to this, like we call it the proof of presence, we also have the proof of sweat, which is a treasury of tokens. So we have one part of all of the tokens that we have that we've actually reserved for people who are building the project. So it's kind of It's not equity because it doesn't work in the same way, but it's a bit like a reward for your time. It can be a little bit of a salary. So if you either, do copy for our social media, or you're fixing the sauna, or you are reviewing our tokenomics, you can be rewarded with this sweat token that will give you both access to TDF and the governance. So yeah, this is a little bit it. I mean, bottom line, the idea of using this blockchain technology for these is that we kind of, in a safe way, that it's somehow still with bridges between, like the initiative legal world that we have. What we're building is a system in which we can give housing to people without a lot of the administration warfare, that, you don't have to go to a notary, you don't have to go to this, you don't have to go to that, you just get your token and you know that you have this amount of nights. And you also know that the money is being used and invested in your home, and that this home has a set of regenerative principles at the core, both from a land perspective, and also from like a social economic perspective. Clarifying questions?
Yeah, thank you for that breakdown. I think it, like you, as you described, it's like a real estate investment in a way. And I know that the platform is not available yet, but eventually you will be able to go onto the platform, onto the website, and use your token after you've purchased it to like book the nights that you want to stay. You'll be able to do, the calendar's view and be able to choose. And I also believe you'll be able to choose between a variety of different accommodation options, such as whether it's a tent or it's in one of the apartments that will be there, or a glamping tent, something like that, if I understand it correctly.
Yes, you're totally right. So, for example, if you would want to come and stay in a glamping, it will cost half a token. If you want a private room, it will cost you 2 tokens, and so on and so forth. And I think, like, just to let you know that I think it's because I think this is very interesting, and it's also what kind of excites me about everything that we're doing, is that, so if I want to spend 30 nights a year at TDF, I buy 30 tokens, and I know that with these 30 tokens every year, I will go into this kind of Airbnb like platform and book my nights, and then I also collect my governance, and I can make this voting. That's all good. And I think also something else that it's worth knowing is that, okay, the token gives us access to the real estate and to building the real estate, but there's still maintenance and utility costs. So, for example, every time that I book my stay, I will still have what we call the utility fee, which we right now calculated at 10 euros per day, more or less. And this includes food, electricity, workers, toilet paper, like all of these commodities that sometimes that show up and that just are part of our routine. And then the idea is that we're also building TDF to be a space of creative agency and empowerment, and that, we'll have a restaurant there, or we have one of the warehouses that is going to be remodeled and left empty, so that we can have either yoga retreats, or someone wants to like just make a business of strawberry jams for the month with all of the leftover strawberries that we have from the market. Or maybe we just have a hackathon, like a hackathon for regenerative products for like the month of August in 2027. And so the idea is actually that we create the people who hold the tokens, the people whose TDF is their home, that they're agents and creative, and that they empower themselves to create all of these wealthness and richness in the ecosystem, so that, for example, we don't have to pay the utility fee, because actually like the TDF as an ecosystem provides for itself. So from the restaurant, TDF takes a fee, from the gym, TDF takes a fee, from guests, TDF takes a fee, so that our home supports itself and we actually can stay at cost zero. And eventually, maybe even one day, we even have an excess of money. Like we're so trustful that we have like a shared bank account together, and that we can think of, building another TDF, or you know, building instead of like maybe not only the co-living, but start to build houses for permanent living and for families and for people to stay there. And so I think that this is a very also like just a good note to leave that, yeah, how to create a system, a housing system that is resilient in itself. I think it's a good one.
Yeah, this is such a unique system that you have built here. It has to be, I think it is one of a kind. And I'm excited for people to learn about it. Also, if you buy a token, can you sell it back to the market, or can you sell it to someone else if you decide that you no longer want the tokens, or maybe that year you're not going to stay? How does that work?
Okay, so this is a very interesting question. It requires a little bit of context. So as I mentioned before, the fundraising of the project it's done mostly through the token sales. And therefore, we want to avoid, whilst the project is not built yet, whilst we do not finish the entire reconstruction and renovation of the place, we want to avoid secondary markets and secondary trade. And therefore, if you purchase your tokens now, you'll only be capable of selling them and of transferring them once the project goes live. And so, and going live means that we will at some point, hopefully around 2025, host a big festival like weekend, very regenerative and semi-hedonist maybe, to celebrate that we actually like built this chicken farm and that we're like there together and that we're regenerating this land. And once this happens, it means that, you know, that we've acquired enough funds to build the place and that we can start that we can start prototyping other things, and that there is space for this secondary market. So that's one. And then another one is with regard the exchange of tokens, right? If you don't want to go next year, can you trade your tokens? Yes, at the moment, everything is still a little bit manual, but we are in our platform, we have the tokens, and we're making systems for people to change tokens in a safe way that is going to be enabled soon.
So it's going to be something in the future that will be easy on the platform.
It's something that we're thinking about like how to enable people's movement and dedication, and yeah, that's definitely in our design.
Great. Well, I wanted to ask you, so is there anything else that you wanted to share before we go?
I think that, I mean, it really depends on the community that you have around and how you think of living together. I think that what I would like to leave is really a note of like, cultivating homes and spaces that are coming from places of self-agency and not of commodity. And this is something that we really try to empower at TDF, and we're also very flaky at it, you know, like bottom line is also just like extremely challenging to work together in a healthy way with healthy patterns, you know, like easier said than done, but encouraging people to really think about these. And if you're interested in getting to know more about TDF, just hop on the website, sign up. You'll be contacted to go for an onboarding call to learn a little bit more about us, to be with our community curator or our community catalyst. Actually, that's their name, not curator. And then, and if you're interested in also participating and contributing, like not right now, we're launching this organizational structure in which we're capable of having people that are holding with a lot of responsibility and clarity, very clear domains, but and that this helps them being capable of asking for tiny tasks for the community around, you know. And these tiny tasks can be, hey, do you want to write these terms and conditions here? Or hey, do you want to write these social media posts on that? Or those tiny tasks may be, hey, we need a yoga deck on the ground, who's down to come and build it? And so it's a very co-created process. It's a very co-created project. And that's what I want to leave. If you want to support, if you want to be a part of it, just come and build.
Great. What do you love most about TDF, B?
Yeah, I think the creative energy and and the the systemic challenging, you know, the like I think that it's really extraordinary that if we kind of crack this tokenomics, like if this token plugs in and if we're capable of, I think it's been way more laborious than we ever thought that it would be, and we're being resilient enough to like adapt and iterate. But I'm really fascinated by the fact of the imprint that we can have, because if TDF works, and if like with it working, 10 other people can start add other 10 TDFs and like scale this movement that gives both housing and make sure that like soil is being regenerated. I think that's what makes me thrive.
That is so fantastic. And when you mentioned the soil, I think it's really important for me to ask, so you can highlight this. How is the land being treated and protected in this whole process?
So we have TDF is part of a network that we call Oasa, and Oasa is works as a little bit of a land trust, and we have what we call the regenerative land stewardship principles. I think that's not the exact name. I think some of those words may be swapped, but we call them the principles, the regenerative principles. And the essence behind that is to make sure that all of the projects that fit within this network have regenerative principles at the core, and so that we make sure that we do not apply extractivist methods in the way that we develop the project. And of course it's very location dependent, so I don't want to go into too much detail, but basically the principles of biodiversity, principles of water capture in our case in Alentejo, principles of reforestation and agroforestry, and so we're really trying to reconnect and to restore a little bit the landscape around us, and it goes with like trying and error, but that's the goal.
And from what I understand, the land can never be sold now. It is held in a trust, and so it will be protected.
Yes. So the idea is that so if I get my tokens, I actually do not get the ownership of the land. I just get the right to access the facilities of it and the perpetual right to do so. And then the land is actually under protection, and it's owned by this association that I mentioned that acts as a land trust. And the idea is really to model this blueprint of moving from the concept of ownership to the concept of stewardship, in which people still hold a lot of rights and protections of like access to real estate, but where they act with the asset, with the land, from a place of care and nurturing, and not from a place of extraction.
Thank you so much for all of your explanation about TDF today, B. I have to say as a final word to the people listening that when I found TDF, it was during the pandemic in the early stages of the project. And I thought, what a better way to be connected to community and to be able to get to a space that had fresh water, fresh air, and where I could grow my own food with people if I needed to. And that's another thing I really love about TDF, and hopefully many other projects out there. But the fact that TDF is now open for investing, and for people who are curious, B, where can they go if they want to buy, if they want to look at the token and try to buy it?
They just go to the website. So you can all go to traditionalzoomfactory.com, and we have like, it's gonna go live later this week, like some sessions for like ask me anything questions, ask me anything sessions. And also just so there's this one, and there will also be like our community curator or our community catalyst, who will be hosting calls that are a little bit more in the social domain. And in the website, you'll find all of the information about the token that we have been able to compile. It's a complex system, so probably will take some time. And then you can just like hop on a call and ask any questions that you may have.
Yeah, and if you want to volunteer and come check out the space, it's waiting for you in the Alentejo region of Portugal. Bea, thank you so much for introducing this amazing space to us. I hope you have a wonderful day.
Thank you. Thank you so much.